All right, how's it going, everybody? Dr. Austin Quon here, and we're back with another short lecture. I want to talk about today the top 8 things that we know scientifically depress your immune system. And we've been talking about, as this coronavirus has become a bigger deal here in the United States, I've read a lot of things about medical doctors proclaiming that there aren't things that you can do to boost your immune system. So if there aren't going to be things that you can do to boost your immune system, let's see if we can avoid some of the things that are specifically depressing and repressing your immune system from functioning at an optimal level. So let's get right into it. We know that Harvard medical researchers have talked about that the power of the body, the power that made the body, heals the body. The wisdom, the innate wisdom that's within every single person is responsible for 90% of a patient's hope to recover. And this body has a super wisdom that's always in favor of life rather than death. And it's really important that all medical doctors, all chiropractors, all doctors in general are able to communicate this to their patients to instill a sense of confidence and faith in their body's innate ability to heal themselves. And I think this is something we've really lost touch with as we've started to progress into this pandemic that we're starting to experience here in the United States. So I want to see if we can instill some faith in just some of the basic physiological mechanisms that are trying to keep you healthy. And again, the ones that are trying to fight disease and fight infection every second of every day, how can we keep those processes at a high level? And especially if we're doing things that are going to keep those processes from working at a high level, what are those things that we're doing that are detrimental to our health, and how can we adjust those or change our lifestyle habits to avoid depressing and specifically decreasing our immune system function? So one of the big things that we know, science shows, is that chronic sleep deficiency will directly decrease your immune system. If you can't get adequate sleep, adequate recovery, it's going to disturb your immune homeostasis, and ultimately it's going to amplify and cause immune dysregulation on a cardiovascular level, on a metabolic level. If you already have autoimmune conditions, or if you're immunosuppressed as it is, it's going to only throw that into a worse spiral. So it's really important that you're getting enough sleep through all of this hysteria that's going on with the coronavirus. So sleep is number one. The second thing, and this is a 128-page paper talking about that the lack of exercise is a major contributor to chronic disease process. So if you aren't exercising enough, if your body isn't moving enough, if you're not getting enough tissue perfusion of blood, you're not getting enough metabolic waste removal, if your body is not exercising enough, if you're not getting enough exercise, you are at bigger risk for chronic disease process, and ultimately it's lowering how your immune system is fighting off infections. So super key. Great paper that we could talk about, but it's really long, so we want to make sure if you can read it, that'd be a great thing for you to do. But chronic lack of exercise is going to be a key factor in depressing your immune system. We want to make sure you get out, at least get some exercise in. Another thing that really depresses your immune system, and something that unfortunately I would say a lot of my peers are doing a lot of these days, is drinking too much alcohol. Alcohol is a direct central nervous system depressant, and we know that if your central nervous system is depressed, it's going to directly affect not only the innate but also the adaptive immune processes, and it's going to cause your immune system not to function at the highest level possible. So the more alcohol you drink, and especially it's one thing if you're drinking a glass of wine or a couple drinks here and there, but the binge drinking is ultimately what we're really talking about here. The more alcohol you consume, the less fighting ability your immune system has. So super key that we can work on your alcohol consumption. I'm not saying go completely cold turkey, but it is something you want to be cognizant of reducing at a very smooth rate here. Another thing that we got to work on is a lot of people use tobacco products. Tobacco can also be a direct decreaser of your immune system. So we got to make sure if you are smoking cigarettes more often, and a lot of people nowadays, because they're not working or they're not exercising as much, they're not out and about, they're choosing and turning to these substances to pass time, they're just bored, or maybe just because they're anxious and feeling nervous all the time. So it's something that if we can decrease your tobacco consumption, specifically in cigarettes, that's going to help with your immune system response as well. Another big one that a lot of people are taking these days, we say over 50 million Americans have some type of diagnosed autoimmune condition. Immunosuppressant drugs and immunosuppressant medications are obviously going to directly affect how well your body is able to fight off an infection like the coronavirus. So if you have an autoimmune condition, or maybe you just had an organ transplant, or you have some type of chronic condition where your doctor has put you on immunosuppressant medication, this would be a circumstance where you could be at risk. You could have a depressed immune system, and ultimately that's going to inhibit you from fighting off an infection as properly. So it's something to definitely consult with your doctor about if potentially the medications that you're taking are promoting a higher risk of you containing an infection. So it's going to be something we definitely want to address. Another big one, and one of the reasons why chiropractors have remained open as an essential healthcare practitioner, is because of the way that pain, you being in pain, affects your immune system. And we know that in this book here talked about that if you have pain, especially after a surgery, they've given people morphine and fentanyl, and they've studied that if you actually take these opioid medications and decrease your pain level after a surgery, it decreases the chance of your immune system actually fighting against itself. And it increases your chance of survival, it decreases your chance of metastasis and other types of a poor spread of disease process within you. So you being in pain directly affects how your immune system is functioning. So if we can decrease your pain levels, that's absolutely going to fire up not only your nervous system, but all those neuroimmunological connections as well. So again, if you're in pain, it's directly causing a stress tone and a stress level that's directly inhibiting your immune system's ability to fight infection. Another thing that we really talk about here, and especially with all the hysteria that's going on, and something that's really near and dear to my heart, especially as I talk to a lot of our patients here, is the fear that ends up happening because people are afraid that they're going to infect each other, they're afraid that they're going to die of the disease. The fear and the chronic fear that people are experiencing at this point is directly detrimental to your overall health and well-being. But we know that from the Neuroscience Education Institute that it talks about that the immune system can become dysfunctional if you are in a constant state of fear. Another thing in Stephen Porges' paper that talks about polyvagal theory is that if you experience fear on a constant level all the time, your body goes into a sympathetic dominant tone where your body is constantly in that fight or flight stress tone. So if you can imagine you're trying to always fight a tiger in the room all the time, every second of every day. Your body is not worried about trying to fight off an infection or to reproduce or to digest food. It's just trying to live through the next 2 minutes of life. So it's really critical that if we can get you out of that fight or flight tone, that's going to be key. And if we can just reduce the anger and the fear levels that people are afraid. I think a lot of what's happening with the coronavirus is there's so much uncertainty and unknown about what's happening. And a lot of this fear that people are experiencing, whether it's because the government might be instilling it, whether these pharmaceutical companies are instilling it, or whether it's just your local neighbors or friends and family that are instilling it in you, it's really critical. Fearfulness will directly inhibit your immune system. So if we can start giving you better content and finding better facts just so that we can put you at ease about what's actually happening with the coronavirus, that's going to be super key in not only fighting the infection, but making sure your immune system isn't getting depressed. Another thing that's super key is that the vagus nerve, and that's something as chiropractors we know we work on specifically, is the vagus nerve's ability to communicate information to all of your internal organs. So we've seen papers that have talked about that the vagus nerve can be predicted by measuring HRV, respiratory sinus arrhythmias, but especially with heart rate variability. If we can measure how well your vagus nerve is functioning, we can almost predict how likely you are to spread or contract a communicable disease. So it's really important as we move forward into this public health conversation about chiropractic and about the vagus nerve and about how we're actually fighting and boosting people's immune systems or actually repressing people's immune system, the vagus nerve has to be in that conversation. And we know that the nervous system, the vagus nerve specifically, has a direct overlap with the immune system. And when you have a high-functioning vagus nerve, your immune system, your inflammatory response, your innate immune response works at the most optimal level. And that crosstalk, that communication between those two systems has to work symmetrically, perfectly, and well developed. Okay, so it's super, super key that we can get that physiology working inside of you. And we know that there's chiropractic research out there that talks about when you get adjusted, when we can correct those subluxations that you have, when we can remove interference between the way your brain is communicating through your nervous system to all of your cells, especially those immune organs and those immune cells, we can decrease that sympathetic tone, which is going to allow your nervous system to promote the healing and infection fighting part of that immune system health. Again, chiropractors don't directly decrease the immune system or increase the immune system. What we do is allow the body to have the best information to heal itself and to activate the right processes at the right time when you're supposed to be fighting infection. So again, the coronavirus is a big deal right now. We're trying our best to comply with as many measures as we can. I know the social distancing is huge right now. We're trying to make sure that we're sterilizing tables and washing our hands in between each patient. We're scheduling people with lots of space in between. But we still want to make sure, and again, chiropractic is an essential healthcare service because of the way that pain is affected, but also because of the way we can affect your stress levels. And if you're a high stress kind of person, if you're feeling a lot of stress right now, it is directly decreasing your immune function. So we want to make sure in this tough time that you have the best fighting chance to fight the coronavirus for you, your family members, your neighbors, and everybody in your community. Dr. Quon here. I can't wait to see you here at the office. Give us a call if we can help you. We'll do as much as we can to be able to empower you with good information and good nervous system health to make sure that we have the best chance to fight the coronavirus together.